Is that all good, everyone? Can you all see my
Yeah,
screen in full?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
perfect.
crystal.
Well, brilliant. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. We are going to be learning all about how to conceive with confidence. So I hope you're ready to take charge of your fertility journey. So today we're going to be talking through my 3 pillars to conceive with confidence. You're going to get an insight into how fertility nutrition can support you. And I'm going to be sharing some easy to implement swaps as well. We're going to be moving on to bust some common fertility myths as well, because I know there's so much confusion out there. And I've got something really exciting to share with you at the end. So please stick with me. So first of all, a little bit about me. I'm a registered nutritional therapist. I have an online clinic predominantly, but I also work out of a gorgeous clinic in the heart of Notting Hill called Cloud 12, which is a wellness space, very much takes a holistic approach to fertility, to wellness. And I specialize in fertility, but I do have a special interest in PCOS as well. And of course, when it comes to fertility, it's really important to have a real broad understanding, an in-depth understanding with in terms of IVF and the IVF process, but also in prenatal and pregnancy nutrition. Often I'll support couples or individuals through their fertility journey. And then once they get pregnant, I'm then obviously delighted to be able to support them through pregnancy. So just moving on from that, I'm also a certified practitioner with the Fertility Nutrition Centre, which is a team of fertility nutritionists. I had to do specialised training to be part of this. When you work with a nutritional therapist, if they're not a specialist in fertility, they've probably only had maybe a few hours of training on fertility. So it does require a little bit more training, really. And I do keep up to date with all of that with CPD as well. I've been featured in various publications, so you might have seen my name about a little bit. But yeah, it's a nice part of the job, that getting to do that side of things also. Now, is this you? I Google everything, but I still feel confused and I don't know where to turn next. And I think that's true for wherever you are on your fertility journey. So even if you're just starting out, you might still be Googling, how quickly am I going to get pregnant? Or, asking ChatGPT and what's the best fertility supplement, etc. Now, meet Ellie and her partner. Now, they were trying for a baby for over 12 months. Ellie was diagnosed with PCOS a few years ago, and she always had irregular cycles and she had bloating as well. So she knew things weren't optimal. Now, she was taking some supplements that she heard were good, but she really wasn't sure if they were the best. And her partner's semen analysis came back as normal, but he had like a few health issues going on. And what I would also say is just check in with your overall health, because we like to say that it's really a proxy for your fertility health. Because if your general health isn't good, then that's going to potentially put you at risk of having issues, or, certainly there are things that you want to address before you start trying to conceive. So what we did, we signed her up for 3 months. I saw him alongside. Within that time, her cycles really became regular by sort of the end of that 3-month period. We also managed to confirm that she was ovulating. We confirmed when that was happening. She was less bloated, she had more energy, improved sleep, and that was true for both of them. They both felt so much better. And they also felt supported and really confident in their next steps. And Ellie then became pregnant. I think I got an email about 2 months after we finished working together. So it was about 5 months all in all of her making these changes. And boom, she got pregnant. And I caught up with her in her early pregnancy. And I'm pleased to say she had a really healthy baby boy. And this is what she had to say. And this is a testimonial that you'll find on my website. So I came to Jen after being unable to get pregnant for over a year. I wanted to know how I could improve my chances, making changes to my diet. And she had the bladder bloating, very irregular periods. Working with Jen, I managed to pretty much eliminate my bloating and have a regular cycle. I've just found out I'm pregnant. Jen also worked with my husband, and I definitely feel this benefited us. We cannot thank Jen enough and would 100% recommend her. So today I'm here to help you regain control of your fertility journey and conceive with confidence. So let's get stuck in. Before we do, though, just a little note to say that this information obviously is really general and it's not tailored to your individual underlying health concerns, any prescription medications that you might be taking. That's why you'll never catch me. I'll often get messages about, is this the best supplement? And I just can't come back on that because I need to be really safe with my recommendations and what I'm advising, essentially. So it's very much for educational purposes and it won't replace medical advice. Obviously, you need to speak to your doctor. If you're making any big changes, then that needs to be monitored alongside. So let's get stuck in. So my pillars to conceive with confidence are nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. And I really wanted to simplify things for you because it can feel quite confusing when you start this journey. But if we can cover these three pillars, then I think you're off to a really good start. And you can see there's overlap here as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit in terms of like exercise being good for mindset, but also it's a lifestyle factor that we want to support also. Now, why does this matter? So egg and sperm quality is absolutely key and fundamental to having a healthy baby. So the future health of your baby is down to the DNA within both the egg and the sperm itself. And the integrity, i.e. the lining, the membrane, the wall, the cell wall of the egg and of the head of the sperm, that integrity is really, really important, and that holds all of that genetic material. Now, there's high energy requirements to make a baby as well. So that's also an important consideration. That's going to require the correct nutrients, the right amount of sleep, adrenal support, no sort of burning the candle at both ends as such. So that is something to be aware of. And like I said, the DNA is held in the head of the sperm and in the egg, and that's going to determine the health of your future baby. The egg also, interestingly, does contain all the nutrients to feed the embryo in those very early, crucial first few weeks. And that's before the placenta is laid down, which can happen anywhere between week 10 and even week 13, 14, when it's fully working. Unlike with eggs, the nutrition and the lifestyle can increase the parameters. So obviously with women, we're born with all of the eggs, so we can't increase the number. We can improve the quality. However, with men, we can actually improve semen parameters because sperm is being produced constantly. Every second sperm turnover is happening. And we can improve parameters, including sperm count and concentration, morphology, motility, etc. And that genetic material is key. The genetic code has all the instructions to help grow the baby, for reproduction, for function, and that DNA is passed on from the parents during that fertilization. And like I said, I've repeated that a few times, but it's so important in relation to the health of your future baby because it's not just about getting pregnant, it's about having that healthy pregnancy and that healthy baby at the end. So first of all, let's deep dive into pillar 1, nutrition. And just a little note to say that everything that we do is evidence-based, and there's reams and reams of evidence to back up the use of diet to support better outcomes when it comes to fertility in women and better semen quality in men. There's so much evidence to back this up, like we can see here. So, that's just a little starting point. And then when we dig a little bit deeper, there's an awful lot of evidence that supports the Mediterranean diet in relation to optimal fertility. And this pattern a lot of the studies, in fact, do center around IVF, because it's where we get groups of people together usually, and we can monitor outcomes, for example. So it's a lot easier for them to do this research around the IVF journey. But everything points towards the Mediterranean diet being the one that comes out on top time and time again for better outcomes. And that's pregnancy rates, number of embryos in IVF, better quality of egg and sperm, etc. So let's have a little look at the Mediterranean diet. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this and you've come across it before, especially if you have been trying to conceive a while. But I'll run you through it in a little bit more detail. So, the foundation of this is very much, it's about eating together, that social aspect. It's cooking your own foods as well. I think it's really important to factor that in as well. Ideally, cooking as much as possible, cooking from scratch, and eating together and enjoying your food. And it's not about depriving ourselves here as well. And you will note that nothing's excluded here. We can see a slice of cake at the top, we can see a glass of wine, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail as we go through. But essentially, the foundation of this diet is very much plant-based. So we've got vegetables here, 2 or more servings per meal. And really, when we look at that on a plate, we ideally want half the plate to be vegetables. And it talks here about a variety of colours, fruits as well, 1 to 2 servings. It says that with every meal. I mean, I say sort of 2 to 3 servings a day would be adequate. It might be you're having a portion with breakfast and then like a snack later on in the day, or a couple of portions with breakfast. Olive oil features with every main meal. And that is why this diet is so good for fertility. It's full of lots of good healthy fats. We can see every day consuming things like olives, nuts and seeds, 1 to 2 servings every day. We've also got whole grains as well, ideally with every meal. So things like whole grain bread, pasta, brown rice, couscous. It's quite processed, so I sort of tend to get people to stick more to the quinoas, the brown rice, amaranth, other grains and things instead, buckwheat, etc. But a little bit on occasion's fine. Herbs, spices, garlic, onions, using those every day. Dairy's not excluded. You don't have to cut out dairy. You don't have to cut out gluten. It's just about everything in moderation, really. We do ignore the fact that it says low fat here, because I think we know better now that actually often when we buy low fat products, they have added sugars and emulsifiers and other additives that we'd want to ideally avoid. And actually that animal fat isn't bad. It's being deemed quite bad, but actually we know better now that a little bit of that is absolutely fine. So Greek full fat yogurts, some cheese. I think where people go wrong with dairy is if they're just having an awful lot of cheese. So a portion a day is about 30 grams. It's not very much. And then the other reason why the Mediterranean diet is so good for fertility is because it really focuses on this fish intake over meat, and that's white meat and red meat. So fish and seafood should count for at least, as a very minimum, 2 portions a week, ideally more. I sort of say 3 to 4 portions. You want maybe 2 of those to be oily fish like sardines, mackerel, salmon, and then a couple of portions of white fish, maybe some seafood if you can eat that. White meat, 2 servings a week. So that might be some chicken a couple of times a week, for example. And then red meat, 2 or less servings a week. And that is still important to include because it's a really good source of iron. It's got processed meats in here. I mean, I would sort of tend to stay away from anything processed really and stick to more, lean cuts of meat, good quality cuts of meat. And I think that's the other thing about this. It is important to think about quality over quantity as well with anything really. So when it comes to meat, ideally organic, grass-fed. We will touch on this a little bit as we go through, but quality is important also. So let's have a look at how this translates to a balanced plate. So really, when we're talking about it being predominantly a plant-based diet, half that plate should be vegetables, then a quarter of the plate. So obviously it talks about the whole grains, and that should be with every meal. So we sort of say a quarter of the plate would be the whole grains, or it could be starchy veg. So for example, if you're having a potato, a sweet potato, some roasted beetroot, then you might not need the grains because they're more starchy and they're going to give you that higher carbohydrate and higher energy intake. And then a quarter of the plate should be protein, or we say a palm-sized portion of protein. And not to forget the very important healthy fats, which are essential for just going back to that membrane integrity of the egg and the sperm. We know that healthy fats can help reduce ovarian aging, for example, but also help protect that membrane integrity. And with this, it's very much either a thumb-sized portion, so that could be a thumb-sized portion of cheese, or a sprinkling of nuts or seeds, or a drizzle of, say, that olive oil that you're going to put on every main meal, for example, where it warrants it. So the other thing, when we think about these vegetables, one of the things that you've probably come across quite a bit is this term of eating the rainbow. And the reason why it's really important when it comes to fertility is that we can obtain all of these antioxidants, these lovely antioxidants. Now, what are antioxidants? Well, really, they're just vitamins and minerals, basically, just giving them a bit of a fancy name. And if we do cover all of the different colours of the fruits and vegetables, then we should be getting a nice variety in, a nice amount of all of the different types of antioxidants, or at least a good, proportion of them. So, for example, the greens, often these are rich in folate, which you might have heard of or know as folic acid. Folate's actually the natural form of vitamin B9. Now, this is really important to support hormone balance and detox, but also there's quite a lot of evidence around folate supporting fertility, and we know that it's really important to reduce neural tube defects in early pregnancy as well. The greens often also contain vitamin C, some vitamin K, and even a little bit of iron as well. The purples contain anthocyanins, which are, again, another antioxidant. And these antioxidants are really important because what they do is they help protect the egg and the sperm from DNA damage. And oxidative stress happens all the time, whether it's our lifestyle, our environment. Even when we work out, every time we exercise, there's going to be some oxidative stress. But what's really important here is nourishing the body and helping it to repair this DNA damage with the antioxidants. And so what they do, they come in and they scavenge all of the pro-oxidants, basically, and help reduce that DNA damage. So they're really rich in all of these different colours, particularly those purples, really anti-inflammatory. Things like beetroot as well, really good for fertility, actually, because it can support the blood flow. It's rich in nitric oxide. And often these also contain vitamin C. It's quite prevalent in quite a few of these different colours. Now, the reds, when I think of the reds, I think of things like tomatoes and watermelon, which both contain lycopene, which is really, really great for male fertility. Now, lycopene is richer in cooked tomatoes. So we're at that perfect time of year now for adding, tinned tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, cooking them in, ragouts, dals, soups and stews and things like that. So really ramping that up is going to help. Pomegranates can also support that blood flow, and these often all contain vitamin C as well. Now, the orange veggies and some fruits as well contain the beta carotene form of vitamin A, which then has to be converted to the preformed vitamin A, which is retinol. But beta carotene is really helpful for fertility, as is the retinoic acid as well. Now, these support egg health and sperm production. Vitamin A helps with cellular differentiation, really, really important in relation to DNA. And they also contain vitamin C and some folate as well. Now, we'll dig a little bit deeper into the micronutrients. So, for example, again, loads of evidence around omega-3, and we're just going to touch on one of the micronutrients today. So this has been found to help the ovarian, our eggs do age as we age, but what we found with omega-3 is that actually it can help protect and certainly potentially slow down some of that ovarian aging. So a really, really important one, an easy one to increase. And let's look at how we can do that. So omega-3 sources. So the best sources are oily fish, and the acronym SMASH-T. So that's salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, herring, trout. And that contains the EPA and the DHA. Now, a lot of the time, fertility supplements will just contain the DHA, or pregnancy omega-3s, for example, will have the DHA, which is really important for baby's brain health. But we also need the EPA. So it's important to get both, basically. So getting it from food, you're going to make sure you're covering off all bases there. If you're vegan, then algae oil is the next best option for you. Of course, things like nuts and seeds contain ALA rather than the EPA and the DHA. It does need to be converted to that. But things like walnuts, for example, are a really nice addition to a fertility diet. They've got a really nice ratio of omega-3 to 6 as well. And then seeds, we saw on that Mediterranean diet incorporating nuts and seeds every day. So having a variety here would also be lovely. And I just added this in actually because I wanted to touch on ultra processed foods. There's been a lot of talk about it in the last 12 months. And I would just draw your attention to a few things to be aware of. So first of all, it's quite obvious, but do check the labels. If there's a long list of ingredients with unrecognizable names, then it's a good indicator that it's quite a processed food. And not all processed food is bad for us, I will add, but this is going to help you distinguish that. And then another thing that I've seen cropping up quite a bit is MSG, which most foods don't actually contain MSG itself. But what they've done now is they've hidden it by giving it different names in foods. So even things like yeast extract or stock or certain E numbers, rice syrups, maltodextrin, corn syrup or cornstarch, even the term natural flavoring, which if I saw that on a label, I'd be thinking, well, that's natural, right? That can contain MSG. And it's not great. And I will delve into this a bit more to give you a bit more context around that in the group program. But I just wanted to flag that up as just something to be aware of. So really reading those labels. If you're not sure what an ingredient is, then if it doesn't sound like a whole food, then it's probably quite processed. Check for additives, things like flavorings, stabilizers, sodium nitrate. Also check the shelf life. I bought some gluten-free bread recently and it literally didn't go off. Like it was there in the cupboard for like a couple of weeks. I mean, that's a sign that it's gonna be full of preservatives, full of additives. If the shelf life's quite long, then it's gonna have those things in there. Do evaluate the nutritional value. I do think the traffic light system can help, but it's not the only thing that I would look at. It's kind of with everything else. Ultra processed foods are often higher in the fats, sugar and sodium. And also just think about the processing, how far removed is that product from the original food or ingredients that are within it. So let's just think about this nutrition and some simple swaps that you can make. And I'm happy if you want to take a quick picture of this. But for example, white potato, go for something with colour to get those antioxidants in. So a sweet or a purple potato. We didn't touch on blood sugar balance today, but we do within Conceive with Confidence. But pineapple, for example, is highly sweet. So I'm in favour of more low GI, so things like berries. And again, the white rice, we talked about the whole grain being better, sourdough rather than just a really highly processed sliced loaf, and potentially a savoury snack as instead of a sweet snack to really help balance those blood sugar levels. Dark chocolate would be a better option instead of milk. Not cutting out meat, but sort of choosing fish over meat. And then instead of having tinned tuna, for example, go for one of those omega-3 rich oily fish like the salmon or the sardines, which again, you can get in tins, so really easy to incorporate. Going for something like almond milk instead of an oat milk. Organic dairy, organic Greek yogurt. So we did talk about dairy and going for more full fat and organic as well. And we will touch on that in a little bit more detail in terms of organic and the clean 15 as we go through. Now, just a little reminder that 50% of the DNA of the baby and your future baby comes from the sperm and 50% comes from the egg. So everything that we've spoken about so far is really important for both the couple together to be doing this alongside. Pillar 2, lifestyle. So let's look at some of the key lifestyle factors that can impact fertility. Now, a really, really big one is endocrine disruptors and toxins. And a lot of the things that come up and cause a lot of confusion include things like alcohol and, do you need to stop completely? How much caffeine's okay? What caffeine should I be drinking? What decaf? Plastics, it's a really big problem now. It's everywhere. It's in our water. We've got microplastics in our coffee cups. It's, from the food containers that we're eating out of. It's in our hair and beauty products. So I will coach and guide you on all of these and help you make better choices. And the other big one as well, and it's been in the press a lot recently, are pesticides as well, and these forever chemicals. And then exercise, what's okay? And this really does require expertly trained guidance. So that, again, can be quite confusing, and it really does vary person to person. Sleep is another lifestyle factor. So really important for both of the couple to be supporting sleep. Now, we know that not enough sleep, so certainly sort of 6-7 hours, we can see that through hormone levels. So I'll see low testosterone quite a lot, not just in men, but in women as well. And often poor sleep is the culprit there. And once we start putting some things into practice and start improving that sleep and getting that more closer to sort of 8 hours, we see quite big changes in relation to hormones. And then stress as well. Now, stress itself doesn't impact for fertility, but we do know that elevated cortisol can impact hormone levels. So it is really important to factor stress in. Of course, the fertility journey can be stressful in itself, but feeling supported and guided is a huge stress relief. So alcohol and caffeine, we're going to cover today. So what I wanted to mention was that it's really important to focus more on quality rather than quantity. So what I'm talking about here is going for ideally organic. It could be biodynamic, for example, when it comes to alcohol. Now, when we think about wine, for example, grapes are highly, highly sprayed, and it takes an awful lot of grapes to make even one bottle of wine. And I dread to think how much pesticides and how much of those forever chemicals are getting in even just one glass. So I really would be very mindful of the quality. You don't have to cut out alcohol completely. A lot of the studies suggest that about 5 units a week or less is okay. It's not very much. It sounds like it might be 5 drinks. It's probably about 2 drinks. So it's really not an awful lot, but it's really about support, going more for the quality. And then with the coffee, it's quite a moldy food because of the way it gets processed. So going for something that's mold free, organic, again, ideally would be a better option. And in terms of how much you can drink, well, we know that up to about 200 milligrams of caffeine per day is okay in women, but it really depends on your tolerance. I do quite a lot of testing in clinic, and one of the things that we look at is genetics, and we can actually test your predisposition to being able to tolerate caffeine. And it's quite interesting when we look at that. It comes up quite a lot for people. So you might know your own tolerance. With coffee, I would say 1 to 2 cups a day, but you need to make sure that it's not sort of 5 shots going in a cup if you're having that out and about. So maybe make that at home so you're a bit more in control of how much you're having. Plastics. So we need to be mindful really of all plastics. BPA free has been touted as the solution, but it's still plastic. So we're finding out that actually it might not be any better. We want to avoid wrapping and heating food up in plastic. That can really leach into the food. And then thinking about tinned tomatoes, for example. So you can get some tinned tomatoes that are not lined in the plastic or in the BPA. I'm quite a fan of just getting jars of passata, for example, and that works just as well. And if a recipe calls for tinned tomatoes, you can just use fresh ones. And watch out for those hidden plastics in coffee cups, for example, often, again, lining the coffee cup, or often you might have like a paper cup, but the lid is plastic. So take the lid off and drink from that, or just have your own disposable one. Filter your water where possible, and just try and start making the switch to some more natural products. And chewing on pens is an interesting one. But I did have a client once who had a bit of a habit of chewing on pens quite significantly. And, we had a big chat about how much plastic over the years he's potentially ingested. So if you are one to do that, then maybe think about changing that or getting one of those stress balls for when you're at work. So pesticides, there's an awful lot of studies to support this. It's been in the press an awful lot, so you probably don't need me to tell you about this, but it is implicated with reduced pregnancy and live birth following IVF. So how do we avoid pesticides? Well, I know it's really expensive to go completely organic. So what I would point you towards is the Dirty Dozen. Now, in the UK, we have a list that gets published every year by Pan UK. And this is the list for last year. So we haven't had one for 2024 yet. It will probably come out in the next couple of months. But the list does change every year, but the same culprits come up. And I would say the things that come up often are berries. So obviously this year it's strawberries, but we've seen blueberries before, raspberries. So I really say all berries really get organic. I think 95% of the strawberries in the UK were found to contain not just one, but a multitude of pesticides on them. So just switching to organics, quite a big win. Leaves as well. So obviously we've got lettuce on the list this year, but in the past we've seen kale, spinach, any sort of bagged salads. For any of that, go organic. Tomatoes come up every year as well. A lot of these things grow above ground. So generally speaking, we're okay with things like potatoes. For example, any of the root vegetables seem to be okay in terms of going for non-organic. So some simple swaps. So instead of non-organic wine, go for organic. Instead of a decaf coffee, go for Swiss water decaf. You might have heard of that, but the brand that I really like is Exhale Coffee. And if you do join Conceive with Confidence, you're going to get lists of all my recommendations anyway. So I'll kind of touch on it a little bit tonight, but you'll get all of that support. Instead of plastic water bottles, go for metal, glass. I take mine everywhere with me. I take my reusable coffee cup with me. Make the switch from cling film to, you can get plant-based ones actually, or things like beeswax wraps. Go for fresh tomatoes instead of tinned. Clean up your makeup, your body care. Go for that organic, or the clean 15 at least. Go for filtered water. And again, you'll get loads of recommendations for different options there. Instead of HIIT workouts, I think if you are looking to try and conceive, just really review what you are doing. And I'm a little bit more in favour of low intensity. It doesn't mean you can't be in a gym and do weight training. We're going to move on to exercise in a little bit more detail, but and I'll leave that to the experts to cover. But yeah, it is important if you have a lot of stress going on. It's about factoring in the bigger picture here, of course, as well. But you know your body better than anyone. And if you feel like it's kind of adding to your stress load, then perhaps that's a good sign that it's time to reduce the intensity. And then, of course, things like phone use as well. And that blue light isn't great also. So mindset, pillar 3. Now, remember, you're not alone. And I don't know where you all are on your fertility journey yet, but remember that 1 in 7 couples in the UK struggle to conceive, and it's actually 1.6 globally. Now, you know, you might be at the beginning of your fertility journey, so you might not be that 1 in 7 or 1 in 6. However, it's still really important when you are trying to conceive to support your mindset. And these are some things that we're not going to cover them all today, but these are some things that are included in Conceive with Confidence. So, for example, you know, breath work. Not everyone enjoys meditation, for example, but breath work's quite a nice alternative. And in my Conceive with Confidence group program, I am going to have someone come in and do a breathwork session with you. Journaling can be really helpful, even just simple things like connecting with nature, finding the joy in little things. Self-care as well when you're on your fertility journey. And it's really about what it means to you. For some people, it might be a bubble bath. For others, it won't be. But I think it's really important when you are on your fertility journey to really put some nice things into practice and support your self-care. And that could look like different things. So it could be that bubble bath. It could be exercise, nourishing food. You know, on Conceive with Confidence, you'll get loads of meal plans. So even just feeling like you're doing something really positive to support your fertility, that's part of self-care. Also, acupuncture, reflexology. I've got a lot of time for some of these natural therapies, and there's an awful lot of evidence as well, particularly around acupuncture. Also, don't forget to celebrate your small wins. So if you start to add a bit more colour on your plate after tonight, start increasing your oily fish intake, just remember to celebrate those small wins as well. And this is what Conceive with Confidence will help you do, because we'll have challenges every week to help you celebrate those small wins. And then finally, it's really important to find your support system. So depending again on where you are in your journey, if you're just starting out, it might be friends that you're talking to, it might be your partner. If you're a bit deeper in your journey or it's challenging, it might be counselling, for example. But also Conceive with Confidence is going to be there to support you. And we're also going to have support to in terms of the workplace as well with Jen Elworthy, and we'll touch on that in a second. So just as we start to get to the end, I just want you to take a moment. So I'm going to take you through this quick breath work. So get into a comfortable position. You can be seated, lying down, or standing, whatever works for you. And then you want to release any of that stale air where you might be shallow breathing. So what you do, you breathe in through your nose and then sharply through your mouth going. And you do that 3 times. So you go. And then with your eyes closed, breathe in for 5 through your nose, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out through your nose for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you do that, so in through your nose for 5, out through your nose for 5, you want to bring that oxygen into your chest and down into your lower abdomen, and really focus on bringing that breath into your womb. And you can even visualize a smile happening in your lower abdomen by recalling the warm feeling that you get when you smile, and send this down to your belly. Now, again, feel free to take a screenshot of this, but if you ever feel like someone's just triggered you, there's been a pregnancy announcement, or your period's just come and you just need to go away to the bathroom and take a moment, then, have this on your phone and do this for a few breaths, even just a couple of minutes, just to reconnect with your womb, reconnect with your abdomen and your reproductive organs, and help you feel centered and grounded. And another little exercise that I quite like is thinking about the things that I love. I think on this fertility journey, we can really lose sight of who we are, what we enjoy, what we're all about. And sometimes just reconnecting with this can be really powerful. So for me, I love a bit of dark chocolate. I love, much to my husband's annoyance, a good rom-com. Nourishing food, it's absolutely up there on the top of my list. Of course, my husband, my family. I love cozy clothes, walks in nature, cooking, Pilates, yoga, and of course your friends as well. So this is going to look different for everyone. But if you are on your journey and you're struggling at the moment and you feel like you've lost yourself a little bit, try and reconnect with yourself and those things that you love. And try and incorporate these things in. When was the last time you went for a walk in nature? When was the last time you treated yourself for a facial? So do try and, take those moments for yourself and try and incorporate a bit of self-care and self-love into your day, into your week. So some simple swaps then. So I'm a huge fan of sort of around this time, really, when you're on your fertility journey, just setting boundaries, start saying no to things, start protecting your energy, but don't keep everything bottled up. Talking to friends, your family, your partner, and don't deny if you need help. Ask for help and ask the right people. Don't go down the Google rabbit hole, though. Try and avoid it. And I think we need to add ChatGPT on here as well, because that will tell you anything. You'll get an answer that you might not want to hear, for example. Instead of Netflix, maybe some journaling in the evening, some breath work. Instead of a workout indoors, can you get outside a little bit more and make that self-care a priority? And of course, make sure you get the right support. Finally, let's bust some myths. So myth 1, AMH is a marker for fertility. And you probably hear quite a lot about AMH. Now, if you go and have a fertility MOT, AMH is one of the things that they'll check. And I speak to people all the time, and they've been scared by IVF clinics because they've been told their AMH is low for age, or that they don't, they shouldn't be waiting and they need to jump into IVF. And perhaps they haven't got to the root cause of what's going on. Now, AMH, it can give us an indication of ovarian reserve. It stands for anti-Müllerian hormone. It's produced by the ovaries. However, it tells us nothing about the quality of the eggs. Also, we need to take into consideration the antral follicle count. So usually a fertility clinic will test your AMH on bloods, but they'll also scan your, do an internal vaginal scan and count the follicles on each ovary. And they'll use that information together. But then, like I said, they might scare you into starting IVF tomorrow without preparing based on your AMH. But actually, we know it's not a marker for fertility. Even low for age AMH, I've had clients sort of with AMH of 1 getting pregnant naturally Some have even tried IVF and it hasn't worked, and then they've gone away, had a bit of time away, and they've got pregnant naturally. So it is a complete myth, and don't be scared into pushing forward into IVF based solely on your AMH. Get a second opinion, and give yourself a little bit of time to prepare. Myth 2, the only supplement I need is folic acid. So folic acid gets bandied around an awful lot. I mean, a lot of the studies around neural tube defects are with regards to folic acid. So it's become a bit of a go-to in a lot of prenatal supplements. However, the problem with folic acid is it's synthetic, and up to about 60% of the general population cannot convert folic acid into the active form of folate or B9. So contrary to what you may have been told, and I see this all the time, fertility clinics will say, are you taking folic acid? Are you taking vitamin D? And that's kind of the extent of the nutrition advice that you'll get in a lot of places. But folic acid is synthetic, and it might not be the right option for you. Most of the good supplements now are actually using methylfolate, and in fact, one of the UK's leading high street brands have started changing their supplements from folic acid, and they're using methylfolate now. So I think the tide is finally starting to turn on this one. Myth 3, IVF's the only option if we haven't conceived naturally within 12 months. Not at all. And this is where fertility nutrition can really help you, because what it's about is getting to the root cause of why you haven't conceived yet. What I tend to say is don't wait too long. So if you're over the age of 35 and you haven't conceived within 6 months, you want to start getting the ball rolling with some testing. A good place to start is with your GP, getting some routine bloods, and then moving on from there, there's other tests. And we will cover testing in Conceive with Confidence. So you'll have all the information that you need to know what next steps you need to take. So yeah, under the age of 35, then yes, fine, continue to try for 12 months. We know by about 12 months, between 80 and 90% of people do conceive naturally. So for some people, it does take longer. We don't know why. Could be they haven't been tracking ovulation correctly. Maybe nutrition hasn't been great. We know actually from a study this year that 9 in 10 women are deficient in key nutrients ahead of pregnancy, in pregnancy, sorry. And it was established that they were lacking those nutrients in the preconception period as well. So there's lots of factors, and that's where fertility nutrition can try and get to the root cause of what's going on for you, and hopefully avoid IVF, and really leaving no stone unturned, essentially. Like, finally, let's meet Zara and her partner. Now, they were trying for a baby for 3 years over lockdown, a bit on and off because of everything that was going on. But in that time, she had 2 miscarriages at 7 and 9 weeks. But obviously, because she'd only had 2, she didn't have the full investigation, and she was told to just continue to try naturally. She put on a bit of weight as well after the last miscarriage. She felt really down, really low. His semen analysis was normal, but he was also about to turn 40, which is, I will just add here, a complete myth that male fertility doesn't decline. It just doesn't decline as quickly as it does for women, but there's still obviously optimizations that can happen. So we needed to do a bit more digging on his side. They had a lot of anxiety and stress. They had some personal stuff going on, and obviously the miscarriages really hadn't helped. Now, after 3 months, they really made every meal count. There was no skipping meals anymore. So that was true of him. He was often skipping breakfast. I see this quite a lot, actually. Some of my male clients might be skipping breakfast or grabbing like a meal deal for lunch. So we really made sure every meal counted. We really balanced that plate, like we've talked about, ramped up the antioxidants. We supported their gut health. the vaginal microbiome as well. We did some tests, and there was a bit of dysbiosis and imbalances coming up. So we really worked on that. We supported a bit of weight loss as well, not too much, but just so, there was a bit more confidence coming back as well. Obviously, with weight gain or obesity, we're thinking about inflammation here. So really supporting reducing that inflammation alongside and reducing and supporting any nutritional deficiencies following miscarriage as well. There's potentially some deficiencies, depending on blood loss, etc. So iron, B12, folate, all of these things that we want to look at. And then she had a healthy boy in 2022 following this. So about 2.5 months after getting started, they got pregnant, basically. And here's what Zara had to say. I couldn't believe it when, before the 3 months of working together were up, I had a positive pregnancy test. We're over the moon, and I really believe Jen's guidance and attention to detail has to be one of the leading factors. This is actually a Google review for me. So if you Google me, there's a whole essay that this lovely lady wrote for me of her journey, and that's at the end of it. So it's a really lovely story. Option 1. So what do you do next? You can take it from here. How can I stay motivated, though? You might be wondering, what supplements should I take? How much exercise is safe when trying to conceive? What supplements are safe? Where can I find recipes? How can I make these changes? How can I implement them? You've talked about testing, but what tests should we consider? Can acupuncture really help me? What clinic can I trust? And where do we turn next? Or option 2, we can do this together. So this is where I have created my group program, which includes weekly calls for 6 weeks to deep dive into each of these topics. You'll have handouts and guides to help you conceive with confidence, meal plans and recipes to help you implement the Mediterranean diet and everything that we've touched on and more. Support from a trusted BAN-registered nutritional therapist. I'm a certified fertility practitioner. Support from the community as well. So you'll be all there to support each other together. And of course, expert guests, which will they'll be there to support you alongside. And one more testimonial. This is from Richard. Jen has a wealth of knowledge about nutrition, but an even keener interest in or understanding of fertility nutrition. She's been instrumental in getting me and my wife to a point where we've been successful in our journey, and we couldn't have done it without her. It's always nice to hear from the partners as well. So, introducing my 6-week group program to conceive with confidence. So this includes weekly live webinars with the Q&A at the end, WhatsApp group access. So you'll have the WhatsApp group to support each other. I'll be there to answer any questions. The live webinars will be recorded. So if any of them you're unable to attend live, you'll have access to all the recordings. So you can access that, or if you want to rewatch it, it's going to be there for you. You're going to have expert support and a fertility yoga class as well, all included. You're going to have handouts and weekly meal plans, group support and motivation as well to keep you on track and keep you motivated to make these changes. So who is this for? Now, I've created this to for anyone, really, no matter what stage you're at. If you want to feel more confident on your fertility journey, so no matter whether you're at the start of your fertility journey, or perhaps you've been through rounds of IVF that have failed and you haven't explored all of this in enough detail, or you want to do a bit more digging, you want to review supplements, have a chat about testing, etc., then Conceive with Confidence is for you. So the 6-week group program's broken down like this. So week 1 and 2, we cover nutrition for both weeks. There's an awful lot to get through. We've barely scratched the surface. So we're going to delve into the antioxidants in more detail. We'll touch on blood sugar balance in an awful lot of detail. I really barely talked about it today. We'll talk about gut health. We cover the microbiomes as well with nutrition. We'll also touch on lifestyle as well. So that's week 3. And we also have a live fertility yoga session that week. So week 3, we have 2 sessions that week. Week 4, we have a mindset session. So I'll be running that live, but we also have expert guests. So we're going to have a breathwork coach join us that week. And we're also going to have a sports therapist who's going to answer all of your questions around exercise and trying to conceive. Because like I said, I'm going to leave that to the experts to help support you so you feel really clued up about what's safe and what might be right for you while you're on this journey. Week 5, we're going to have Jen Elworthy join us, who's a fertility and career coach, and she's going to help guide you. Now, even if you're not going through IVF, you might be needing to go for blood tests, having appointments at doctors, or perhaps you just need to have a chat with your work or maybe make some adjustments at work to allow for you to maybe have a little bit less stress and a little bit less juggling going on at work. So Jen's going to cover all of that in this session. So it's going to be super informative no matter what stage you're at in your fertility journey. And then week 6, we're going to be busting a whole lot of myths. And I've only covered 3 today, but there's so many myths. And really, I want to be guided by you. If there's anything that you want me to cover, I'm happy to include it in that session as well, if I haven't already touched on it with what I've got already. And of course, we'll wrap up everything that we've learned. We'll just do a recap so that you can walk away feeling really clued up about everything that we've covered. And each week, what will happen is we'll have the live session, which will be on a Monday evening at 7:30. And you'll also, on a Monday, have all of the content unlocked. So week 1 and 2 with nutrition, you're going to have handouts of like food recommendations, information about protein, about how to follow low GI, about where to buy your fish, where to buy your meat, all sorts of things. Every week, there's going to be a load of handouts that you're going to receive to support everything that we're talking about. So you can keep that and help in terms of making, your choices and your food shops, etc. So these are some of the experts that we've got involved with Conceive with Confidence. So we've got Alex Taylor, who's a fertility yoga specialist. She's going to be running the live yoga session for us. We've got the lovely Jen Elworthy, who's the fertility and career coach and consultant. She's got a whole week for herself to kind of join and take you through and answer any questions that you have. So that's going to be super informative. And then we've got the lovely Kate Taylor, who's a sports therapist, and she's also the founder of Move to Conceive. And she's going to be answering all your questions around exercise whilst trying to conceive and how it changes depending on where you're at within your journey and if there's IVF involved, for example. So this 6-week group program includes those 6 weekly live Zooms. There's going to be a live Q&A at the end. Those sessions are going to involve me and those expert guests. You're going to receive the WhatsApp group with access to me for questions, as well as that group support and hopefully that group motivation as well. You're going to get all of the handouts. You're going to get weekly, every single week, you're going to get meal plans from me with all sorts of different recipes. So you'll feel really inspired. Hopefully you saw I shared one recently on an email, and that would just give you a little taster of what I shared in my April cohort this year. Now, all of this is just for $199, and that's 6 weeks of support. So it works out at £33 a week. Or if you're splitting that as a couple, which you don't have to pay twice for a couple, you can both join together via, one Zoom link. And if you split it between the both of you, it's £16.58 per person a week. And that works out at £2.36 per person a day for those 6 weeks, which is, almost half the price of a coffee now. So Another thing that I wanted to mention that's included or an added on extra is a supplement review offer. So if you sign up with Conceive with Confidence, I'm offering you a supplement review. And the reason I have to do this is because, like I said, I can't make recommendations unless I know your health and medical history. So this will allow me to make those recommendations to you for just £49 per person or £69 for a couple. And I don't offer these as standalone. You won't be able to buy this outside of my group program. Now, as a little bonus, anyone that signs up to Conceive with Confidence will be in the draw to win a 3-month supply of Equi pregnancy formula, which is a really, really lovely supplement. I've used it myself in pregnancy. I often, not always, but often recommend it to my clients. All you have to do is sign up to my group program and you'll be entered into the draw. So everyone that signs up will be in for a chance of winning that. And that's worth about 120, more than £120 for 3 months. So how to sign up? All you need to do is use this QR code. Now, I've got limited spaces. I had a really small group in April. I had 12 people. That was 6 couples. And it was really nice, actually, because I was able to give everyone sort of really one-to-one, almost that one-to-one support in the group setting and really personalize it. So I do have limited spaces. I don't want to take on too many people. The doors will close on Friday the 20th. So we've got, so that's a week on Friday now. So don't wait, do sign up sooner rather than later, because like I said, I am going to cap it depending on how many people sign up. But all you need to do is take a little picture of this QR code and it will take you to the link to book that. So finally, I'm just going to end things there and I'll stop the recording, but let's finish